So, as you obviously see, I'm not feeling very well, and this is a huge, huge sugya. What I see on the sources that were sent to me, that what is not very common in the way our shiurim are put together, but you have a lot of likutim, likuta bosa likuta, and towards the end of the source sheet, there are various different present-day machabrim that bring it all together. So there's not really much to add on, and therefore I would focus on my shitta. I have a special shitta in this sugya, which is unlike the understanding of all the other achronim. So let's embark on our journey. I would prefer going to the sources than actually learning.
Go back to the sources.
Yeah, I would prefer analyzing the sources, preferable. We can learn the Mincha Sosha, but it's not the same. So what is the Afikomen? Rashi and Rishbam both explain. Shetzorech lechol matzah b'gemara seudo zeichel matzah necheles mapesach v'zui matzah betzua she'onu oichlim. I'm reading Rashi, and you already went down too far. I'm in the middle of Rashi.
Move back up. Pray for them. Move back up. Okay, there you go. And the fourth one.
Oisa shel achar achila v'al kochenu onu mavochem al achilas matzah berishoino afar pi she'eina bo l'shem chayvo kediyomar Rav Chisda. So actually, to understand Kuf Yutes, you need to understand Kuf Tes Vav Amud Aleph.
Let's go to that Gemara, please. You had it before.
There's a Machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. What is a person supposed to do if the only vegetable he has is morar? So what does he do with karpas? Rav Huna says he eats morar l'shem karpas with a clear kavanah not to be yoytze mitzvahs morar.
It's a previous Amud Beis. It's a previous Amud of Pesach. The previous Amud. It starts in the previous Amud. It'll be easier for the Rav to see the text for us.
Rav Chisda is on this Amud, but Rav Huna is on the previous Amud. So what does a person do? The only vegetable he has is morar. And Rav Huna says, what's the problem? He eats morar l'shem karpas without a bracha. Then he eats morar again l'shem morar. And the second time he eats morar, he says the bracha, Bechas HaMitzvah shekedishon v'achilas morar. Maskef lo Rav Chisda. La'achar shemile kreisoy hemeno yichoyzer v'mavorech oleyo. Doesn't make sense that a person eats morar b'leila seder without a bracha. And therefore,
now we're on Kuf Tes Vav. Back to Kuf Tes Vav. The Rav is ready. Moved on to level. Yeah.
Okay. So Rav Chisda says, "La'achar shemila kreisoy choyzer u'mavorech oleyo." Elo Rav Chisda. Mikol ha'mavorech oleyo bo yipi adomo v'alachilas morar lo ochel v'lebesaf ochel achilas chasa b'loi bracha. Pastas Havana is, even though he's not Yoitze Mitzvah Morar, only Ba'achila Shniya, nevertheless, he says Berchas HaMitzvah Ba'achila Rishtoino. And the svod of Rav Chisda is, it doesn't make sense. La'achar shemile kreisoy choyzer u'mavorech. So now we go back to Kuf Yutes, to the sugya of Afikomen. Both Rashi and the Rashbam explain the ikra mitzvah of matzah b'leil seder is Afikomen. So why do we say a bracha at the beginning of the seder? Because of the svod of Rav Chisda. La'achar shemile kreisoy choyzer u'mavorech. And that is why we say a bracha at the beginning of the seder. This sugya actually appears in 3 different variations. Today, we will only address 2. But anybody that really wants to learn the sugya in its entirety needs also to supplement and to learn the sugya of Tkiyas the Meyushav and Tkiyas the Ma'umad. Because we have exactly the same discussion in the Rishonim and in the Poskim. Which Tkiyas are the real ones? Which Tkiyas are we yoitze? Is it Tkiyas the Ma'umad because it's al say that Bruchas Malchi Zachor and Shofris? And the only reason we blow at the beginning is the Arbe V'Sasot. So why do we make a brocha the first Tkiyas if we're not yoitze with the first Tkiyas? Svara Rav Chisda, la'achashem milekreis. So the machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Chisda deals with Achilas Moror. The Rishonim adapt this machlokes to Afikomen, dealing with the question, which is the Ikar Mitzvahs Matzah, Kazayas, Rishon or Afikomen? And the same question dealing with Tkiyas Shofar, Tkiyas the Meyushav, Tkiyas the Moed. We, today's share, will be putting aside Tkiyas Shofar. But if somebody really wants to get into my opinion in the sugya, you need to learn Minchas Osher Moyadim Chelek Aleph regarding Tkiyas the Meyushav and Tkiyas the Ma'umed, but we won't do that today. So let's come back to Afikomen. Rashi clearly says, and the Rashbam, the Ikar Mitzvah is the second Kazayas, is Afikomen. Why do we say the Brocha Achilas Matzah, the first Kazayas? Because of Rav Chisda. So let's have a look at Rashi, because we learned Rashbam. But Rashbam always follows in the footstep of his Rebbe and his mentor and his Zaidi. The Rashbam was an Einekel of Rashi. Ein maftir nach Matzah Afikomen, shetzorach lechol Matzah begmar Suda zecher Matzah nacheles Pesach, vezui Matzah betzur sheoni ulch lamachol l'shem choyves Matzah. Oyster shela achar achire val kochenu lemavochem lachiz Matzah b'lishoyno, afar pi she'eino bo l'shem choyvo, kediyomar Rav Chisda. So we already read Rashi before, so let's look at the Rashbam. Achar she'ochlu Pesach b'chabura. Ein maftiren achar Pesach Afikomen, shetzorach lechol Matzah begmar Sugdosoi, zecher lamatzah nacheles Pesach bekricha, וזוהי מצה בצורה שאוני אוכל למחוינו לשם חויבו, ועל כוחנו או למברך מלאכיז מצה בלשוינו, אף על פי שאינו לשם חויבו, כדיומר רב חיסדא לאל גבה מורויר. So both Rashi and Rashbam seem clearly to say, we're yoitza mitzvahs matzah with the second, Afikomen. Why do we say a brocha on the first matzah? Lachashem min hakreisoi. Tosfos, Kufchof Omid Aleph seems to disagree. Let's have a look. Before we go to Tosfos, let's see Rashi again. Let's go back to Rashi. Do you realize there are 2 gersois in Rashi? Geras Elishoina and Geras Achroina. We go back to the original Rashi, Kuf Yud Testament base. Down, here we are. That's taken out, around brackets. Instead of that, they put in I don't know who made this tikkun. I will disagree with this tikkun, and my interpretation is the previous one. But let's move forward. Let's have a look at Tosfos. Tosfos and the Rosh. Tosfos clearly says, and the Rosh, but I would prefer Tosfos. Tosfos comes before the Rosh. Bereshoino, Vadai I Islay Matzah. Just a minute. ועיקר מצווה על הראשונו, שיבול את היובים, וגם יהלה בסוף תא מצה בפיו. ואויסוי כזייס אחרון, ואפילו המקרא מצווה באחרונה, אין זה תימה. אם עולים מבורכם על הראשונו, כדי לפתור המצה של אחרונה. שהרי אין לבורך על אחרונה, משום שלח השם מלקרייסוי. So Toysis seems to see two possibilities. On one hand, Toysis says, Kadesh Yochamatzel Tiyovim. But maybe the Ikar Mitzvah is Bachroya. Let's go back to the very first Mishnah in Harav Psalm Tzadik Testament base. When the Mishnah says, Erev Pesach you're not allowed to eat, La'achar Chatzos.
Tzadik Testament base, Pesach. Tzadik Testament base.
Testament base. Kedei sheyochal matzah l'teyavoim. So actually in the Siman Chav Gimel, the mitzvahs Afikomen, in Minchas Sosha, I also discussed the concept of Tiyah Shoifer. You don't need to look at Chelek Aleph. It's a Chelek Gimel as well. Okay, so the very beginning of Perek Av Psochim. Av Psochim, Somel Amincha Lo Yochal Lo Damat Shetech Shach. And the Gemara says, why? Kedei sheyochal matzah l'tiyavoim. But the Gemara clearly says, Aval be'erev Pesach mishum chiyuv v'dematzah. It is because of chiyuv matzah that Chazal say, yochal matzah l'tiyavoim. Mishum chiyuv dematzah. And let's have a look at the Rashbam. What the Rashbam explains this halacha, we scroll down. Kedei sheyochal matzah l'tiyavoim. Mishum chiyuv dematzah. Shelo tehena cheles ala soiva v'chiyuv dematzah le'ela rishon choypo. So it seems to be clear in the Gemara that the first kezayis is chiyuv matzah. And that's why there's a k'beidet sheyochal l'tiyavoim. So the point I want to make is a gavaldik chiddush. But I feel so strongly. What is the concept Ikar HaMitzvah? What do we mean when we use the two words Ikar HaMitzvah? Ikar HaMitzvah doesn't mean it is exclusively the only mitzvah. It is Ikar HaMitzvah, which means when we are Mekayim a mitzvah in its totality, entirety, al kol prateya v'dikdukeya v'hidureya, that is what we define Ikar HaMitzvah. And that doesn't mean that the first kezayis is not a mitzvah at all. Because what always bothered me in this sugya, dealing with morer and karpas, dealing with matzah and afikomen, Rav Chizda says it's unreasonable, and therefore we say a brocha levatol, and that justifies a brocha levatol. But Birchas HaMitzvah, there's a din of hefsek. How can you say 8 o'clock by night when you start to say the Hashikadishonu b'mitzvos v'alachilas matzah, and you're not makayim the mitzvah till 4 hours later, after saying the entire Adonan and Harav and the Suda, and by the Suda you shmooze with your family and you compliment your wife, and every hefsek in the world you did, and then you makayim the mitzvah? How is that possible? And the same kasha is regarding morer and karpas. You start the Seder with karpas, and it's quite a while since you're going to eat more. That would be a brocha levatol. And the same regarding tkiyas the meyushav and tkiyas the me'umad. You say a brocha tkiyas the meyushav, and then b'chazor shatz, you're going to be yoytze mitzvah shoifor. So to me it is clear. And I brought such powerful rayas from shofar, more than from matzah. If he says a bracha, when he eats more of Shem Karpas, he is Yoitza Mitzvah more. Otherwise, it would be a bracha levatol. But the Ikar Mitzvah is later. He is Yoitza, but it's not the Ikar Mitzvah. Because the Ikar Mitzvah is Al Matzah Sebrorim Yoklu, first Matzah, then Mok. The same with Afikomen. If you say a bracha at the beginning of the Seder, it goes without saying your Yoitza Mitzvah's Matzah, Machila Rishoyno. And that is why Chazal are Matbet Shiyochal Matzah L'Teyavod, because you're Yoitza with the first Achila. Ikar HaMitzvah is Afikomen. And why is that? Pesach Nechal Ala Soiva. It's the more choshev mitzvah. It's the mitzvah with its hidurim. Ikar HaMitzvah is Afikomen. But if you're not Yoitza with the first Kazayas, that would be a brocha levatola. And that is my understanding in Rav Chizda. And that is my understanding about Kiyazdam Yushim and Kiyazdam Umad. Because the Tur says that we are makel bet Kiyazdam Umad, and we don't do 3 times Tashrat, Tashat, Arat, because we're Yoitza with the first Kiyas. Even though the same Tur says, Ikar mitzvah shoifet Kiyazdam Umad al Seder HaBrochas. The Chazon Ish says there's a Stilas HaTosfos. But a Stilas HaTosfos is not very troubling. Many Achronim say, we can't ask a Stila from one Tosfos to the other. But what the Chazon Ish wasn't aware of, if it's a Stila, then it's a Stilas Aran and Stilas HaTur. Because both Aran and the Tur bring Ikar Tkiyas the moment. But we're makel bet Kiyas the moment because we were already Yotzeh bet Kiyas the moment. And now we come back to the Rashbam. And not Rashi, not the Rashbam, Rashi Kufyu Tesum and Weiss. Let's go through Rashi again, according to my understanding. Kufyu Tesum and Weiss, if we could go back.
Back to the Rashi on page 1. Back to the Rashi.
Page 1, all the way back to page 1. Here we are. שצורך לאכול מצה בגמר הסעודה, זכר המצה, לחרס מהפסח וזוהי מצווה בצורה, שאני אוכל למכון לשם חייבס מצה. אויסטר של האכל אכילה, ועל כורחנו ולמבוך ולהכניס מצה ולשיינו, הויל ובוא לשם חייבו. כדיומר רב חיסדא. not אף על פי שאינו בוא לשם חייבו, הויל ובוא לשם חייבו. Both are חייבו. First of all, we're Yoitza with Achila Rishoyna, because otherwise would be a Brocha Levatola. Otherwise, what's the Kpeda not to eat Friday afternoon? She Yoichel Matzah L'Teyoven. The Gemara says, Mishum Chiyuv de Matzah, because that's the Chiyuv Matzah. So many Rishonim, I think it's in the Rashbam as well. Let's scroll down to the Rashbam. I think the Rashbam says, Ikar HaMitzvah is Afikomen, but I'm not confident, I'm not sure. All the way down to the bottom of the page. Ein meftinach HaPesach Afikomen, שצורך לאכול מצה בגמר סעודות, זכר המצה לחרס מהפסח, בקריחה, וזוהי מצה בצור שאנחנו מכורים לשם חוי, ועל כורחנו מבוך על כניס מצה בשוינו, אף על פי שאינו לשם חוי בו. Okay, so maybe in the Rosh, let's have a look at the Rosh. Some Rishonim I remember say, Ikar HaMitzvah. Let's have a look at Toises. Let's have a look at the Rosh. Here we are.
Rosh Zecher. Rosh Zecher leKarban Pesach.
Pizah Hayonera shetzorach lecha lemamorah v'chareisis, kivin shezecha matzah lecheres mapesach bekricha. Chiyas matzah shekvar mila kreisim v'ena v'yim kan tzorach lasos k'moy b'zman ha'mikdash. And that's a big chiddush that's not nifsak lahalacha.
Which sheet is the Rav looking for?
I'm looking at the top of the page, second column. The oyster matzah ain't a shem choy ve'ela ochel es zecha lepesach she'olech al soivo. So the Rosh's opinion is that Afikomen is only Zeichel Pesach and everything is the first Kazayas. Now let's go down to Tosfos. We scroll down, next page. Let's have a look at Tosfos again. So Tosfos does use the question, what is the Ikar mitzvah? The Ikar mitzvah ala Rishono. Va'afilu Ikar mitzvah ba'achroino ein ze tema im nevochem ala Rishono kedei liftor matzah shel achroino la'achashem lekais. So Tosfos does use the phrase, what is the Ikar mitzvah? Tamtzis advorim. My understanding is there's a concept of Ikar mitzvah, and that is what you're mekam mitzvah b'shleimuta. Ikar mitzvah smorer is la'achar achilas matzah, because the pasuk says al matzah smorer yochlu. Ikar mitzvah matzah is the one that is zeichel pesach. Ikar mitzvah shoifer brochis malchi is achroin shoifers. But whenever we say a brocha, we are yotzi yedei chayva, because otherwise the bracha would be a bracha l'laton. I admit that my parish is a big chiddush, and I have a problem with the Rosh. But I don't really have a problem with the Rosh, because the Rosh gives us both sides of this machlokes. And the Rosh says, oichel ma'at matzeh ba'achroina. Lefi atzad, that we yoitza with the first kezayis, the lashon of the Rosh is oichel ma'at matzeh, mashmeh, you don't even need to eat a kezayis, but that is based on the understanding that the mitzvah is only kezayis lishon, and Afikomen is just a zeicha ba'ala. So I'm sure you went through all the shittas of the Rishonim and Achronim. There's a big controversy whether the Afikomen needs a seba. The Beis Yosef understands from the Rambam that Afikomen does not necessitate a seba, because the Rambam does it right that you need to eat the Afikomen by a seba, which would prove that we yoyse the mitzvah with the first kezayis. So I think somewhere down your sheet, I saw the sources dealing with the question, do we need Haseva ba'afikomen? I don't recall exactly what page it is, but I did go through the sources, and somewhere, let's have a look at the Maril. Maril is important. Scroll down. Maril.
The Maril is on
Yeah.
the Weiss thing, on the bottom, the last part.
The Chavivi, Mishah mitzvahs Shiur mekazai שיחות סבייצה ולך לעשוי וגם כדי סביר, והם לא יכול לך על כל הרעים, בכל מקום לא יפחס מלך על כזייס, ובואי הסייבה. So the Maril says, Afikomen necessitates the Seva, but the Rambam, so we could scroll down. How does the Rambam describe the mitzvah of Afikomen? Medivrei Soifrin, שאין מפטיר החמצה כלום, אפילו קלויס וגויס ומקיוסמן, אף על פי שיוכל מצה ויוכל אחרי המחולס אחרס, חויס ואוכל כזייס מצה באחרונה ופויסק. אסור חכום ממלך על מצה ביער הפסח כדי ואחר כך אם ישר בסודה ואוכל כל מה שלא יצא לחם ושיסו כל מה שלא יצא לשתיסו באחרונה, אוכל בבשר הפסח אבל כזייס ואין אותו מהחבקל, בזמן הזה אוכל כזייס ואין אותו מהחבקלים, כדי שיהיה הפסק סעודה זוי, טעם בוסר מצה בפיו שאכילוסו למצווה. So how do we understand the three words, שאכילוסו היא המצווה? What does ha-mitzvah mean? Definitely mitzvah's Pesach. But are you Mekayim? The mitzvah's Pesach only with the last bite? So the Rambam doesn't say you need to eat Afikomen b'heseba. And the Rambam does say, Kazayas Matzah Dalat Koisis and Seva Ma'akav. So it seems to be clear, according to the Rambam, that we don't need to eat Afikomen Beheseba. Two more Nekudas I would like to mention. I saw in the sheet you have the famous Eitzah of the Avnei Nezer. So the Avnei Nezer is always pure genius. And the Avnei Nezer has an amazing argument and an amazing Eitzah. Many Gedolim found it very difficult to finish the Seder before Chatzos and to eat Afikomen before Chatzos. My Rebbe, the Kloiser Magar Rebbe, had an interesting minhag. He always ate Afikomen before Chatzos. But there were 50, 60, 100 people at the Seder. And by Chatzos, they only started serving the food. And he was present. He wasn't makbel at all that the people participating in his Seder eat Afikomen before Chatzos. He didn't really eat a Suda. He had a tiny piece of fish, and he ate, a little piece of meat. And then he was like, Dovek and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not talking much. But the oil didn't eat. The Chsam Sofer did not eat Afikomen before Chatzos, which is interesting. Even though the Chsam Sofer is Amud HaHalach. There's an interesting tshuva in Yeshua's Yaakov Simetofah in Weiss. And the tshuva was written to Rav Moshe Laim Besasov, one of the great Hasidic Rabbeim of that Kufa. And the Yeshua's Yaakov writes, I was asked by a tzaddik. And that tzaddik was Rav Moshe Laim Besasov, and even though the Yeshua's Yaakov doesn't mention his name, we know that from other sources. I was asked by a tzaddik that does a lot of achana before he performs a mitzvah. Does he need to eat Afikomen before Chatzos? And Yeshua's Yaakov discusses the opinion of the Rambam. Paskins Kirabakiva, Adalois Shachar. And he's Maraporim Lahokal. So the Avnei Nezer comes with a spark of genius, and he says, you only need to eat the Afikomen before Chatzos, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. That Pesach Nechalat Chatzos, and all the other mitzvahs are like Korban Pesach. But if the halacha is Rabbi Akiva, that the mitzvah of Pesach is Adalois Shachar, then you could eat Adalois Shachar. So the eighth of the Avnei Nezer is, when Chatzos approaches, you eat the Kazayas Matzah L'Shem Afikomen. After Chatzos, there is no Kpeda. Because the Kpeda Ein Maftir Nach HaPesach Kadei Sheyish Et HaMatzah B'Piv is only at Sav Zman HaMitzvah. You're allowed to eat Yom Tov in the morning. You're allowed to eat Chol Hamoed. Doesn't need Matzah B'Piv forever and ever. So till when do we need Matzah B'Piv? Till Sav Zman Achilas Pesach. So you eat a kazayis L'Shem Afikomen before Chatzos. Imalochek Rav Elazar ben Azariah. Imalochek Rav Akiva, you have time till the morning. Imalochek Rav Elazar ben Azariah, after Chatzos, there's no paid of Yishata Matzah B'Piv. In Mincha Sosh, I disagreed with Avnei Nezer for various different reasons. But my strongest argument is the Lashon HaRambam, Tosfos, and all the other Rishonim. Let's go back to the Rambam. Just scroll up. The Rambam writes, what is the Kpeda Ein Maftir Nach HaPesach Afikomen? Kedei Sheyeh Gemara Su'udosoi V'Ta'am Matzah B'Piv. Oh, we're all confused. Upside down. Okay, scroll down. We go back to the Rambam. Here we are. I think down. Rambam. Down.
No, which Rambam does the Rav mean?
Next page.
Next page.
I think it's the next page. Oh.
No. Go.
Was I okay? Go back up. Was I confused?
There's two Rambams there. Is there
Okay.
a third one that you need? Pesach,
Okay.
go back to the page with the Rambams.
Okay, here we are. Yes. Okay. ובזמן הזה אוכל כזייס מצה ואין הכהן אחרי הכהנים, כדי שיהיה הפסק סעודוסוי וטעם בוסר הפסח או מצה בפיו. הפסק סעודוסוי. The Afikomen needs to come at the end of the Seudo, and it has nothing to do with the Sovzman Achilas HaPesach. It has to do with Hefsek HaSeudo. The Tikkun of Afikomen is a practical one. Chazal want you to go to sleep v'tam matzah b'piv. And it has nothing to do with Sovzman Achilas HaPesach, and that is the basic assumption upon which the entire Eitz of the Avnei Nezer is based. And it's Nisla Meloshon HaRambam. Kedei sheyeh hefsek su'udosoi v'tam bosar ha'pesach matzah b'piv. And the same is in Rashi and Tosfos. Let's go all the way back. All the way back to the beginning of our Maran HaKodesh. Shetzorach lechol matzah שצורך לך מצה בגמר הסעודו. זכר המצה נחלס על הפסח. It has to do with the גמר הסעודו. It does have nothing to do with סוף זמן אכילס הפסח. If you're in the middle of your meal and you wait for Afikomen, you can't keep you can't eat after that.
Wow.
So Rashi writes Gemara Seuda. I think it's the same in Rashi.
Wow.
We scroll down.
Gemara Seudos, it says Gemara Seudos.
But Gemara Seudos, I think it's the same in Rashbam. Where is it? It's in Rashi, it's in the Rashbam, and it's in Rambam. So the Tekana of Ein Maftirin has nothing to do with Sovzman Achilas HaPesach. And this entire patent falls. From Rashi, Rashbam, the Rambam, I think it's in the Rashi, I think it's in all the Rishonim, maybe in Tosfos as well. Let's have a look at Tosfos again. Gemar Seudo, Rashi, Rashbam, Tosfos. So I don't know where the Avnei Nezer came up with this idea that it depends on Sovzman Achilas HaPesach. ואחר כך בגמר סעודוסוי יאכל כזייס מצה ויהיה מצה בפיו. רש"י, רשב"ם, Tosfos, and the Rambam. It depends on Gemar HaSeudo. There's no such a thing you eat Afikomen in the middle of the Suda and then you go on eating. So that is why I totally disagree with the Eitz of the Avnei Nezer, and I don't do it. I am noyeg kemeneg Achsam Sofer and the Yeshuas Yaakov. I can't eat Afikomen before Chatzos. It wouldn't be the say that I have Pesach, which I wish to share with my family, with my children. So I'm Michael, like the Sofer was Michael and many others. And I don't do the Eitz of the Avnei Nezer because I think it's a mistake. It goes against Rashi, Rashbam, Tosfos, Rambam, or the Rishonim. It depends on Gemar Seuda. One last comment. We also discussed, could he eat two Afikomens? Seems to be a stira in Mishnah Berurah. And many present-day Achronim, because never were we as booky in the Mishnah Berurah as we are today. So if we go back to the Minchas Osher, Amud Kuf Beitet, we can go to the Berurah.
We do have the Mishnah Berurah.
Okay, so there seems to be a stira, or we could go to Amud Kuf Beites in Minchas Osher, because I quoted the Lashonis of the Mishnah Berurah. Maybe it'll be more practical. Scroll down to Amud Kuf Beites.
Yeah, so
here we are. אם מותר לאכול שני אפיקומים, לאכול הסוס על המשנה ברורה דברי יעצו. סימן תופעה עם בייס כוסף. Afikomen im Shuchach Lochle Beseva Lo Yachsa Biyachle Nidosa Lechel Shnei Pomim Afikomen. Shatzian says, so b'di'evet was soymech under Rav Yo. This man has said there is no mitzvah v'seiva.
On the top of page 6, Pesach, top of page 6.
Here we are. It's on the screen. It's on the screen.
Okay. We have the Mishnah Berurah if Rob wants. Up to you.
I prefer right now, let's just see the Mishnah Berurah because I quote the Lashonis of the Mishnah Berurah.
Okay.
So the Mishnah Berurah clearly says, if you ate Afikomen without a Seiva, you do not need to eat again. B'di'evet we rely on the Rav Yo. Also, lechel shnei po'amim afikomen. There's no such a thing. If you ate afikomen once, ein maftirin. Tof ayin zayin. Sif couldn't that you're right. So b'di'evet and shochach ba'ochli shalo be'eseibo. Ein tzorech lachzav alechem. Im kosher olav achila. So he says if it's hard for him, and many times at the end of the Seder, you don't have any koich to eat. You're just exploding, and you already ate afikomen. You can't eat them. Kosher olav doesn't need to eat again. So it's clearly mashma from this passage in the Mishnah Berurah. Lechatchila you should eat again. Im kosher olav achila ain't tzorech. But in Tufayim Beis he writes osa lechol afikomen pamayim. So how do we reconcile this sugya? Now Moshe Negus Moshe writes a big doichak, ikar chosam in a sefer. He writes maybe in Tufayim Beis he talks of the situation he already benched. And the Mishnah Berurah doesn't mention benching. But why? Ikar chosam in a sefer. And if the Mishnah Berurah says, osa lechal afikomen pamayim, what does it have to do if you benched or not? Im mutar, you could wash again. Im osa, even if you didn't bench.
It's if you're over to see, we have it on page 6. We have the Igros Moshe also.
So I want to share with you two mahalachim that I wrote. One mahalach is somewhat of a chiddush. I think we should go to the Mishnah Berurah and see their originality. So
page 6, page 6.
Let's open up the Mishnah Berurah and we'll notice an interesting phenomenon. Tov Ayin Beis. Okay, do we have the Shulchan Aruch or only the Mishnah Berurah?
Just the Mishnah Berurah. Just
the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, it would be important, to explain what I'm trying to explain now. The Mishnah Berurah, Tov Ayin Beis, the footnote is on the Mechaber.
The footnote?
No, this footnote is on the Ramah.
On the Ramah, yeah.
It's on the Ramah. And the Ramah paskins according to the Rav Yo. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah writes, b'di'evet we rely on the Rav Yo, and therefore one shouldn't eat afikomen twice. But on Tov Ayin Zayin, the footnote is on the Mechaber, not on the Ramah.
Page 5, the page before Pesach. Go to the page before. It's all there, the page before.
So the Mishnah Berurah in Tov Ayin Zayin.
No, there go. Page before, page 5, yeah. Tov Ayin Zayin.
So this Mishnah Berurah, the footnote is on the Mechaber. Where is it?
Sif Beis, Tov Ayin Zayin Beis.
Sif Kotten Daled. No, V'yochlenu Be'eseva. Sif Kotten Daled in Mishnah Berurah.
B'di'evet, yeah.
B'di'evet. Im shochach v'ochla b'lo yosef, ein tzur lachzav alechel, im kosher v'achila. So according to the Mechaber, that doesn't even quote the Rav Yo. You need to see Afikomen again. It's not Afikomen pamayim, because the first time it wasn't Yoitzer. Because you need to eat B'aseiba. So there's no problem of two Afikomens. You weren't Yoitzer. But in Tov Ayin Beis, the footnote is on the Ramah. The Ramah relies b'di'evet on the Rav Yo. So you were Yoitzer the first time, and then you can't eat Afikomen twice. So this, I think it's a little spark of genius. It depends whether it's the Ramah or the Mechaber. Why am I mesupik Because the Mishnah Berurah, unlike the היוםהשחור, unlike the Chayyim, is a combination. He's a parshan and a poisek. He's both. The Mishnah Berurah explains the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. So it's a combination of commentary and psak. Unlike the היוםהשחור, the Chayyim, the Shulchan Aruch Harav. So is it legitimate to say when the Mishnah Berurah gives two conflicting psukim, this one is under Ramah, this one is under Mechaber, and therefore it's not a stira? This is a suffix I have, ve'ein poiserli, but I think it's a legitimate analysis. Would it be reasonable to say, yes, there is a stira Mishnah Berurah, but the answer is a very simple one. Tofai and Zayin, he's discussing the Shittas HaMechaber that says a seva is ma'akif, and therefore you don't have two Afikomen. You weren't Yoitza the first time, and you need, that's in Tofai and Zayin. In Tofai and Beis, he's commenting on the Ramah, that Ramah relies on the Ravio, and therefore you can't eat two Afikomens. The other Mahalach I wrote, if this argument is not really an acceptable argument, so the other Mahalach I wrote is, I think it depends on Hesach Hadas. So if the person finished with the Afikomen and he moved on, and he's by Chad Gadyo, and suddenly he realizes, I didn't eat Be'eseba, Ein Lecho Afikomen Pamayim. But if he's just after finishing the Afikomen, Vadayin Lo Es Yardat, then he should eat again, Ein Adover Kosher Olav. And I think that is more reasonable than to argue one Mishnah Berurah is before Birchas Hamazon, the other is after Birchas Hamazon. I think it depends on Hesach Hadas. Okay, I think we achieved a lot today. And we discussed Kama v'Kama Chidushim Gedolim. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you. I just shared with you some thoughts that I had in Poland. And in these difficult times, we all are desperately waiting for Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'meiru v'yomeinu. Amen.